And let me start here by saying that I've said this on the show before. I am not a diehard fan of the Scream franchise. I have an appreciation for it. I have an appreciation, especially for the original film, and what Wes Craven was trying to do with that original film. But it's never been like it's not on my Mount Rushmore of horror franchises. And I know that may be controversial to some, but it's just not. There are things I like and there are things I dislike. One of the things that I did like about the new films was Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega's characters. And I think most people have probably heard about the news by now, but Melissa Barrera was fired by Paramount Pictures and by Spyglass Media Group. Yeah. She was fired for posting her thoughts on the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas on her personal Instagram account. Now, before we even get into this, I'm just going to I put this in the description of the video as well. Like we always want to hear people's comments about stuff, but like please, this is I know this story isn't necessarily about the war, but because it's in relation to it, like I feel like I just have to say, like, not that anybody in the chat right now would, or not that like anybody listening would, because I think most people in the horror community are pretty cool about stuff like this and keeping political ideas and things like that out. But if you're gonna leave a comment about this story, please keep it civil. I feel like I have to say that because so many people don't keep this civil. You know, especially on Twitter. Dude, Twitter is like I keep telling them, like, every time I get on Twitter, I'm like, I'm gonna delete this app, and then I don't because it's like an addiction.
Yeah, he keeps saying that, but
delete it.
Yeah, I don't know.
So if you're gonna comment about
please
this,
don't look, guys. Let's just keep it on the topic of the movie itself. You know, if you know, I let's just keep the topic on what we're actually going to talk about right now. I know that there's really bad. I know that topic, you know, of the Israel and Hamas stuff is very touchy, and it's a very tough situation to delve into. But let's at least try to keep it as civil as possible, you know?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Austin? He said, hey, boys, may not be the biggest fan of Melissa's acting in these films, but the reason for firing her was wrong.
And that's what we're going to talk about.
Right. For me, this story is less about Israel and Hamas and what's going on over there, but it's more about the reason she was fired. Because if you've read what she posted on her Instagram story, me personally, I don't think it was anywhere near some of the hateful things that I've seen on other social media platforms. Not necessarily from other actors, just from people in general. She didn't say anything crazy towards or against one side. It wasn't hateful. It was respectful. It was well said. And it's kind of scary, you know. SBC Austin said that shows that it can't have an opinion. You can't have an opinion in this world anymore. I think it's kind of a Johnny Depp situation where it's like, it's very obvious that, you know, similarly to how Johnny Depp was immediately fired from Disney without any kind of investigation or like it's the cancel culture BS. Basically, you know, of like everything you say is just going to come under fire, and it's very disappointing, and it plain up sucks, honestly, because again, as I said before, I'm not a major Scream fan, but she was one of the better things about the new movies for me. So real quick, I wanted to bring up the original article. Melissa Barrera dropped from Scream 7 after social media posts concerning Israel-Hamas war. She led both 2022 Scream and the sixth installment released earlier this year. So this was the original story published on November 21st. Melissa Barrera is no longer starring in Scream 7. The actor was dropped from the project after a series of social media posts in the wake of the Israel-Hamas war. Gaza is currently being treated like a concentration camp, she wrote in one post on Instagram stories, cornering everyone together with nowhere to go, no electricity, no water. People have learned nothing from our histories, and just like our histories, people are still silently watching it all happen. This is genocide and ethnic cleansing. A spokesperson for Spyglass, the company behind the Scream franchise, issued a statement after the initial publication of this article. Spyglass's stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form, including false references to genocide, ethnic cleansing, Holocaust distortion, or anything that flagrantly crosses into the line of hate speech. The Hollywood Reporter has reached out to a rep for Barrera who has made dozens of posts about the war since Hamas invaded Israel on October 7th. She later shared a statement to her own social media. Barrera helped revitalize the franchise with Scream, the 2022 feature that earned $137.7 million globally and combined generations of cast members from the franchise. Barrera's Sam Carpenter was the lead of that film, the older sister of Jenna Ortega's Tara. Barrera also starred in Scream 6, which was released in March and topped $168.9 million at the global box office. Happy Death Day filmmaker Christopher Landon is taking over directing duties on Scream 7 from filmmakers Radio Silence. Filming had not begun, and development had been slow during the actors and writers' strikes. Now, Spyglass has expected it to recalibrate plans following Barrera's firing. Paramount has handled distribution on the recent installments and is expected to return for the new film. This is my statement. Broken heart emoji. Everything sucks. Stop yelling, filmmaker Landon wrote on X Tuesday. This was not my decision to make. He later deleted the post. Earlier on Tuesday, news broke that actor Susan Sarandon had been dropped by talent agency UTA following comments at a pro-Palestinian rally in New York City on November 17th. And the following day, it was announced that Jenna Ortega has dropped out of Scream 7 as well. Sources insist that Ortega's departure has nothing to do with Barrera's firing.
Yes, everything to do with Barrera's firing.
Informed Spyglass. I know, we're going to get to that in a minute. That Ortega's representatives informed Spyglass prior to the actors' strike that the actress, one of the biggest young Hollywood names to emerge this past decade, would not be returning. And the updates that they had posted was November 21st at 5:16. They updated to include the statements from Spyglass and Christopher Landon. And then the following day at 10:30 in the morning, they updated to include the fact that Jenna Ortega had been dropped from the film. So there you have it. That's the original article. Miguel, what are your overall thoughts on these new developments?
I think it was funny how they trying to play off the fact that Jenna Ortega's decision to leave was not, had nothing that it was not connected to the firing. I 100% believe that was connected to the firing. So yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I think that this is just an idea of like trying to like put out some of the fire, damage control, and I think that at this point, I don't agree with what the studio has done with the firing, and I think that what their idea of, I have no idea like what their plan is moving forward. Like, I don't think any of their plans that they've stated so far is in any point a good idea. So this will be something that obviously will have more information will come to light, in the coming months. And do I feel bad for her? Yes, 100%. But I mean, honestly, man, like at this point, you guys should definitely check out a lot of her stuff. Then, if she was fired from Scream, that means check out her other stuff, man. Like she's obviously doing. I think she has a TV show on Showtime, like that she's consistently been in. So, like, dog, like if you guys want to support her, check out her stuff because she's obviously a good actress. I've never seen her in Scream. I don't know the Scream franchise for me to want to get too far delved into it, but I gotta admit she's obviously a well-capable actress. Jenna Ortega being as much of an A-list actor as all the other young actresses that are up and coming, like they both hold weight, and
Right.
attracting the young audience into what is considered a niche and very old franchise, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So for them to just drop her and then let Jenna Ortega follow suit, bro, it's what are you gonna do? It's like a Rachel Zegler situation. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you kind of like destroyed the movie before it even came. Before it even like
Exactly.
was announced. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For
So.
me, I think there's a few things in to kind of rewind and hit on a couple of different topics. The Jenna Ortega thing, I 100% believe. Now, is it possible that filming the Addams Family stuff and doing Wednesday, there is some kind of scheduling conflict? I'm sure there probably is, but I think the timing is impeccable to believe that suddenly she just they figured it out. Sorry, she can't do the film like the day after this happens. I
Hmm.
think I think that's kind of I think it was probably just a PR move to say, yeah, due to scheduling conflicts, she can't do the film. I think it was more in
Oh shit.
solidarity with Melissa Barrera
Yeah,
and trying to stick up for her friend, and that's cool. I support that 100%. Um, I do
I
think
think
this is
that's
a
cool.
Johnny
You
Depp
don't really see
situation
you don't really see
where,
that much
right,
in previous generations. I guess like
yeah,
very rare that we see
actors
co-stars,
sticking up for each other,
sticking up. Yeah, like it was,
yeah,
back then it was very cutthroat, but
right,
I honestly believe that both of them are in the right to support each other because
right,
again, both of them are very they hold weight in this generation's
yeah,
viewership. So,
right,
and honestly, they hold their weight with like the fan base too because if I'm not
oh yeah,
mistaken,
yeah,
unless they were like
well,
hated, unless they didn't do a good job, they would have already been recasted. So obviously they're doing a good job with the franchise, and the fans of the franchise seem to enjoy them. So
yeah,
obviously they have people behind them. So what makes me a little bit more frustrated with this is the fact that the studio dropped them so fast, long, like much
that's the
quicker
thing,
than like the fans having any backlash. You know what I mean? Because if the fans had backlash, and again, this is beyond like deciding what my point of view is, and with the whole Hamas and Israeli stuff, which you guys will not hear my opinions on it in this show, but it just surprises me that like the studio just up and just fired them immediately and not wait for the fans to be
yeah,
like, well, what did the fans think? Because you've seen how like, and again, you see how it happened with Rachel Zegler, like the way she was, acting with like the whole Snow White movie and all this other stuff, and the fans immediately not liking it, and
what's up, Travis?
hey man, and not really supporting what she does. So look what happened. Look what the studio
Yeah,
did. They had to change it because the fans weren't a fan of it. But I've heard no chance of uh of the fans making any decision with what her comments were on Instagram. So that I find weird.
that's the
You know what I
thing.
mean?
It all happened so quickly that I don't think the first fans even heard of what she said was through the articles of and the rumors that had kind of circulated for a couple hours before it was made official that she was being fired. I think if this would have boiled for a little while and it was like, oh shit, there's backlash and we got to do something
Hmm.
about this, then okay, whatever. Then they make their move. But here's the thing: you can look at this two ways. You can look at this like I'm looking at it from my point of view, and I read what she said, and I'm like, okay, I don't think she said anything that was hateful. I think she shared her opinion. I think if she would have been on a press tour or a press junket or whatever for the film, and she was talking about her political opinions and things like that,
Hmm.
um, I on like as she was doing PR for the film, okay, I could see that being like, okay, you're overstepping a line, like you need to tone it back a little bit. But she didn't do that. She was expressing her own opinion on her own social media. Like she was expressing her First Amendment right to do that. So I think for a studio to come behind and say, nope, you can't do that, I think they're the ones overstepping the boundary. And I do think that she was very unfairly fired.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about finding it ironic. I find it ironic, and I haven't seen anybody mention this yet. I find it extremely ironic that it's funny because like I think there's a relationship and a connection and a parallel between horror and punk rock. Like punk rock is kind of rebellious. Punk rock is fun and sad and happy and political, and there's so many different things. And I think horror is the same way. I mean, I think it's ironic that they're punishing someone for punishing an artist for posting her political opinions when the horror genre in and of itself is full of films with a ton of political commentary in them, and with with films that are kind of saying things kind of in the undercurrent and kind of under the radar. Like I find it ironic that she's being punished for for doing something that horror films do all the time, especially Scream being as meta as it is. Like I mean I don't know, I find the whole thing, as they said in the chat before, it just straight up sucks, honestly. I don't know why they would want to do that in the first place, because agree with her or not, again, it's her own personal social media. It's not like she posted it like on the Scream account, or it was in relation to anything Scream in the first place. I think it's disappointing in that respect. I think it's disappointing in that they didn't even give her a chance. It was just like, nope, you're done. That's it. They just pulled the plug without any. It's like there's no. That's the problem with the cancel culture thing. It's like they.
Well, nobody wants their
don't even have a
time.
chance to think.
Yeah, well, nobody wants their time in the barrel. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has their
Right.
moment in the barrel when it comes to Hollywood. And I think everybody just, I'm not going to lie, I thought tea just spilled all over you right there.
No, it didn't.
When the string light came out, I was like, oh shit.
No,
But
I didn't.
but what was I saying? So each person in Hollywood is always scared to know when it's their time to be in the spotlight. Hollywood loves to be in the spotlight, but they don't like to be in the spotlight in this manner. So everyone is fearful of it, but everyone knows that someone's going to get it at some point, because that's the environment that we have. So when it comes to actresses and actors, they don't like it, but they're willing to go through it. But when it comes to a studio, I guess studios have to think of money. They have to think about their business. They have to think of people's paychecks. They have to think about like revenues and like sponsors or whoever is funding them, like all this other jazz. And they are much more fearful of being in quote unquote the barrel. And I think this is probably what caused her firing, was just like they probably know like this will probably get some backlash, so let's go ahead and just fire her. But that's still a bad idea, because we've seen how that does not work at all. And I think I saw Travis's comment with Chuck Wendig and fucking James Gunn and all these other people that just got fired because of some tweets that they had, not even like present, but from previous times.
Right.
And you see how that works. Marvel got some hate from it. Star Wars is obviously getting some hate for it.
Yep.
So it comes to no surprise to me that with Scream making this decision, I feel like the fan base is definitely gonna show some like kickback with this decision. And I honestly think that with them like eyeing to reboot the franchise again, bro, I don't care that you reboot the franchise. I want them to know that the story that you wanted to like talk about is fucking over now. So you
Yeah.
might as well just like not even worry about making another film for a while. Like don't even try to make
Yeah.
this a reboot because you know the
Well,
quality is gonna suck and you know that the time is gonna be terrible and you know nobody's gonna want to watch it because of what history already has with like with your two co-stars, you know, quitting
yeah.
and being fired. Like this franchise is already like in the shitter now. Like, and I'm not saying it's always been. The franchise was doing well as Halloween and all these other franchises that are doing reboots. Like, it was doing well, but now that it's going through this type of bullshit, which almost every single franchise it seems like is going through some woke PR nonsense,
Yeah.
and you see what happens. You can read the
Uh-huh.
script on what is going to happen with the franchise. Like the quality is going to go down, and you're going to lose people, and you're going to lose a lot of fans in the fan base. So
Right.
like, look, man,
I
there's
think,
there's way too much. There's way too much red tape to go through, I guess.
yeah, I think the whole thing lacks nuance, and I think largely all of, like Rosalia has, she just said in the chat, Hollywood has always tried to get their stars to shut up about top politics. But I think
I
when
don't even
you're,
know if that's the case either, because they've had moments where like, I mean, I don't want to. Again, this is not a part of my like political spectrum, but I remember the whole big spiel with everybody going against Trump. You remember that? Where like all of these like actors were just saying like, "Yo, Trump sucks. Like, don't vote
yeah,
for him." Like, I remember that. None of the studios were like, "I don't know if we should do
well,
that."
that's the thing though, is it's like, why is it okay in some
Why is it cherry
instances
picking?
and not
Yeah.
another? Like, I
Why the
don't,
cherry picking? It's not necessary.
it almost kind of just, it feels cheap on the studio's part, on Paramount's
Hmm.
part, because it's like, do you really care? Do you really actually disagree and think what she said is hate speech, or are you just trying to cover your ass and be like, oh, she said something about this controversial topic, so we just have to nip it in the bud before it turns it, like, and like, they didn't even give it a chance to
Hmm.
to it, that story would have disappeared in 24 hours, and it would have been over, and likely the majority of the Screen fandom wouldn't even have seen it. I've seen it, goofy. They
I
wouldn't
don't
even
think
have
it
seen
would
it.
have like cared,
Like,
honestly.
I don't think there would have been any backlash. They could have just left it alone, and it would have been fine. And you
Yeah,
could have
honestly.
told the story that you were planning on telling with your two
Hmm.
lead actors that are the bridge of the current fan base with the old 90s fan base. Like, those two characters were the bridge between
Hmm.
all of your fans. So it's like, why on earth would you do that? And that leaves the question of, okay, well, what do you do now? Like, you almost have to do one of two things. And I've always thought it seems redundant to me, and I've always felt like the Scream franchise was kind of redundant, which is part of the reason it's never been my cup of tea. Um, Although this is my cup of tea. This is awesome. But it leaves the question of, what do you do now? And to me, there's only two options there. You have to bring back Nev Campbell, which I don't know if she would do it.
Why
I
was
don't
she?
know. I
Wasn't she
know.
fired?
I no, she wasn't fired. But I
Or
kind
was
of
she
feel the
like
same
let
way. I'm
go?
like,
Which one was let go?
what are you talking
Which
about?
one was just? I thought there was problems with like the Scream franchise before because they didn't bring someone else
Oh, I don't
back. They
know.
just
I don't
decided.
know. Well, I don't know, but I don't know about what you're talking about, but you almost have to bring back Nev Campbell, which at this point, I don't know why she even would want to in the first place.
Hmm.
Or B, you have to just bite the bullet and bring back Matthew Lillard and say that he didn't die in the first Scream and that Stu is actually still alive and end it. Because without, I mean, these two characters, like Allison in the Halloween films, these two characters were the next chapter. You know what I mean? Yes, you still
Hmm.
had Dewey. Yes, you still had Courtney Cox's character, and you still had Nev in there. But like, I mean, come on! Like, they were the hook to a new generation of Scream fans, and you threw that away just because you had to do a little PR cleanup move that nobody
Hmm.
cared about in the first place. It's stupid to me, and I think they did make a mistake. I think they jumped the gun on it, and I think they should have just shut up and left it alone. Just left it alone. Like, I think when you're in their kind of position, when you're in a leadership position, whether you're the head of a studio or whatever the case may be, I think you have to be able to separate the performer from their political views, and they're using their platform to to advocate for certain things, or to push back against certain things. I mean, look, a prime example: Kevin Spacey. Did Kevin Spacey turn out to be kind of a garbage human being? Yes, but is Kevin Spacey incredible? Yeah, he's an
Mm-hmm.
incredible actor. I can separate those two things. Like, I can acknowledge, yes, he's a great actor, but I can still disagree with many things that he's done. And I think, and of course, I'm not saying this is anywhere near what Kevin Spacey did. I'm not at all trying to say that. I'm just using that as an example of, like, they didn't have to interfere with her political views. They didn't have to acknowledge it even. They could have just moved on from it and nothing would have happened, and you could still tell the seventh entry that you were trying to tell. But unfortunately, now they've dug themselves into a hole, and it's like, okay, what do you do now? Where do you
Mm-hmm.
go? And now Jenna Ortega's. It's just the whole thing sucks, and I hate it for. I hate it for horror fans. I hate it for Scream fans. I hate it for Melissa Barrera because I don't think she deserved that. And I mean, I think she was fired for doing something that anybody else on social media is doing. I mean, it's a hot topic right now, and a lot of people are sharing their thoughts on it.
Yeah, and
So yeah,
honestly, like
it's
I
just
think
it's a
that,
shame.
hmm I don't know. It's just the fact that, like, with the way social media is and the internet, it's just there's so much stuff that's like coming in, like it's like 15, it's literally 15 minutes of fame, like 15 minutes of this, 15 minutes of that, like it's gonna
Yeah,
get pushed to the side because there's more news coming in. And I just think that if the studio would have just been like, you know what, this is just gonna be 15 minutes of this, just
yeah,
let it happen and then let's move on. Like, but instead they had to like perpetuate it. They had to like push the glass even further. And
right.
then now look what they're at. They're now, in the limelight. They're in the barrel, and
Yeah,
they kind of have to take it now because they couldn't handle 15 minutes of fame right there. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, the franchise is going to be fine. The studio probably won't, but I think the franchise will just correct itself at some point. So I don't know. I don't know what the franchise could do. I don't know who they could bring back, but I know that at some point the franchise won't die out. So obviously something's going to happen to recorrect whatever hell happened. So
Yeah, we'll see, man. Travis said the bright side of that Scream 6 sends off the characters pretty well. It does. I would agree with that. But a wild card is to bring back Liv Schreiber, who was affected by Ghostface first. He's also the most famous of the OG cast. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of wild cards, and I think there's a few crazy things that they could do. But again, it just is anybody really going to care at this point? I don't know. I think in doing what they've done, they've dug themselves into a deeper hole than they would have. They wouldn't have been in a hole at all if they would
that's what I
have
mean.
just let her speak on her own social media. Like, she
Mhm.
has a right to do that. And I think it's just you're not, again, nuance. If she would have said something like, if she would have gone on there saying everyone in Israel needs to die and blah 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 blah, and it was this hateful, awful thing, okay, that's different. But
Mhm.
just sharing your opinion on something in a respectful, courteous way is not like it's apples and oranges. It's two completely different things. So
Yeah.
it's a shame, and I feel bad for Melissa Barrera. I feel bad for Jenna Ortega. I feel bad for the rest of the Scream cast. It's obvious that the director, I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm blanking on it. But I feel bad for him because he obviously didn't want this.
Mhm.
It's just it's pretty shitty, and it's a shame that It's a shame that they've put everybody in this situation because not only, for the fans, Christopher Landon, yes, thank you, Chris. Not only does it suck for the fans, but it also sucks for
everybody in the crew that's been
it sucks for the writers, it sucks for the director, it sucks for the actors. I mean, it's a shame, it's pretty sad. So Chris Snyder said now might be a good time to do that new Nightmare style Scream movie where a ghost face is going after the studio for making a new movie and every cast member is a suspect.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, that sounded kind of dope.
That
And you
would
know
be
why? You know
kind of
why?
sick. I'm gonna be
Because
real.
it's so fucking meta and it's so Scream. You know what I mean? I feel like that would work.
That's more meta than New Nightmare was.
I know, so that's perfect. Isn't Scream just supposed to be like all about being meta? So there you go. That's a perfect type of thing to do.
Matthew Lillard starts going around and killing everybody connected to the new Scream movies because they haven't brought Stu back in the new Scream movies.
LOL, and have Stu. That's funny.
But it's actually Matthew Lillard. Like, could you imagine? That'd be that'd be so sick. So that kind of wraps it up.